listeners, and welcome to the latest episode of One Nation Under Whisky Extra Edition. I remain your temporary host, and I'm pleased to say I once again have Joshua sitting in front of me across the video camera. As we've been talking, I should say hello, Joshua.
Thank you. I was like, God, he's so rude.
I normally just jump in when you're introducing. I just say hello and then we move on.
Hello. It's good to be with you, Jace.
Hello. Nice to see you. So, as we've been discussing these past couple of months, June and July, American Whisky Focus. We've had some really excellent conversations along the way. And today, we're really honoured to have Steve Hawley with us. He's the president of the American Single Malt Whisky Commission. And let's summon him from the green room and we will tell him why he has been summoned this day.
Well, hello. I really want one of those things where I can come out of the floor when I'm being summoned. No, like Taylor Swift or whoever does
Oh,
that.
yeah, you need one of those.
You would wear it
really
well,
cool.
Steve.
That would be cool.
That would look very fancy.
Yeah, Tay-Tay.
So,
Yeah.
in our last full episode, we've been working our way through some extras, some full episode interviews with One Nation Under Whisky. And in our last interview, we moved into the world of American Single Malt Whisky. A wonderful conversation with Alistair Brogan over at Boulder Spirits.
He's a fine chap, isn't he?
In Boulder,
Good guy.
Colorado.
Really good guy.
Yeah, another wonderful Scotsman in the world, you know. We might not always be
We
able
all
to
look past that, yeah.
we might not be able to play football very well, but boy, can we represent our country.
Too soon. Too soon.
So in our conversation with him, we actually came around to talking about ratification back when that had happened and the efforts put forth by the commission. And he name dropped your specific efforts. He also talked about the survey that it is best for members to fill in lest they end up on your shit list.
Oh, God bless you, Alistair. Yeah.
And so as we're working our way through, we've been discussing bourbons in the last couple of months. We've been discussing our malted barley distilled spirit project. And now we're discussing the American Single Malt. So we thought it was a perfect time to reach out to you and bring you in. And so, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. My daughter is going to be thrilled that I'm back on the podcast. She did ask the other day, "Are you on every podcast?" And I said, "No, usually just One Nation Under Whisky." There's been a couple others, but obviously this is my favorite one to join. So
That's
glad to be
very
back.
kind
Thank you
of
for having me.
You warm our hearts.
So I think the last time we spoke to you was actually a group episode where we all got together, we celebrated ratification, we talked about hopes and dreams and aspirations for the future, and I'm curious, what have you been seeing on the front lines post ratification?
Well, I still think there's a lot of, buzz about the ratification, even though it was quite a bit of time ago. People are really, really heartwarmed still that we got that over the line. So most of my conversations with folks start there. A little congratulations, a little, raising of glasses still, and, lots of backslapping and, a lot of revelry, still that we were able to get that over the line, after nearly a decade of trying. So it's still fresh for most people. We got together a lot of the commission members in Sacramento. I guess I want to say that was in April. So not too long ago, a few months ago. And yeah, still people buzzing about, what we were able to accomplish there. So I think that, the world is tough right now for whiskey distillers. So I think ratification is kind of that, that one thing that you can latch onto as a ray of hope and, a signal of the fact that there are still good things happening in the world of whiskey, right? And I think people are kind of savoring it a little bit.
Are we 18 months out from that now?
Oh, Jason, I knew you were going to start asking me about dates. Do I have to pull up my... I mean, our website literally has it, December 18th. And I don't want to get the year wrong because that's so embarrassing.
Gotcha,
but it's 2026. It was December 18th, 2024. It was ratified 2025 in January. So, yes.
That's my recollection
almost
of it.
Nearly potentially positive that I got those dates right.
Well, people are still rejoicing around Joshua's last year release being 6 years ago. So I still get people mentioning
I'll never be
to
as far off as Joshua is. So I feel confident coming on the back.
Wow. Feeling personally attacked because I am being personally attacked.
The way people reference that is so good.
And by people, you mean yourself. Anyway, yeah, go on.
I'm so honored it's not just me. That's what really warms my heart. Anyway, we digress. So within that 18 months, you've got the backslapping, you've got the celebrating. Obviously, after a decade, to spend 18 months celebrating it is absolutely worthwhile. I'm curious on, and this was again part of the conversation with Alistair, are you seeing, or are members seeing movement in the retail space, in their tasting rooms? Is there a sense that the populace has kind of twigged to what this means for American single malt whiskey? Or is that still part of the ongoing education?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by twigged, if that is that's a new term.
Okay.
That's a new term for me, Jason. So,
okay. Two countries divided by an uncommon language.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I say that because, you can look at it in one of two ways. Is the awareness of the categories, the understanding of what American single malt whiskey is proliferating? 100%. Absolutely. I've absolutely seen it in the last 18 months, an elevation of the category, an embracing of the category, a further understanding and awareness of the category. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If the question is, do consumers at large understand what we accomplished and what ratification means? The answer is no, right?
No.
They don't have that context. They don't know what TTB is. They don't realize the significance of a formal standard of identity and what that means. Mm-hmm. But because of the groundswell of industry energy behind the category, because of ratification, that is absolutely having an effect on consumers. They're reading about it more, they're seeing it more, it's available more places, they're trying it more often. So yeah, 100%. The consumer is the consumer, but just broadly, American whiskey doesn't just mean bourbon anymore. And that's becoming very clear over the last 18 months to 2 years, even pre-ratification, the idea that this is a part of the American whiskey tradition. And we're seeing that in writing. We're seeing that in a lot of conversations. We're seeing that in further regulatory initiatives. So, for instance, we're working with Discus and the American Whiskey Association to install a formal kind of process for tracking American single malt whiskey in export markets. Right now, a lot of that is just done in kind of a other category. We're lumped into this kind of nebulous category, and the designation of American single malt whiskey being its own line item. That's very kind of inside baseball and wrote analytics and Excel spreadsheets type of stuff, but that stuff matters, and that stuff has an impact beyond the industry when you start seeing things reported in a certain way. Those reports turn into articles about those reports, turn into commentary about the category and about American whiskey broadly that consumers do see. So all that stuff matters.
That's absolutely spot on. It was definitely part of chatting with Alistair where, he's so proud of the new charred oak that he's using on site, but then also very proud of making a single malt whiskey to go into that and communicating to an audience or someone in a tasting room how that's not bourbon, how that is still American single malt whiskey. And I think he felt quite confident having ratification behind him, a specific categorization behind him that he could point to and say, this is that. We also added on the further part, which is bourbon only getting ratified in the 1960s. And people thinking bourbon's been bourbon since the beginning of time. And so the thought that you actually have to fight for a category, you have to present a category, is kind of startling. And I'm curious, was that part of your conversations when you were working on the ratification for American Single Malt, that bourbon had only just happened in the 60s?
Conversations amongst us as producers or conversations with TTB?
Either or.
Either or. Well, first I want to pause there and just say how nice it is to see yet another Scotsman assimilating so well to the American way of life and embracing virgin oak and whatnot. I mean, everywhere you turn, a Scotsman's applying for citizenship in one way or another. It's good.
And you're lucky to have us.
And we're lucky to have. I think was the relative, newness of bourbon as a formal category on our minds? I don't know so much. No, I think that I think more importantly, when we finally were ratified, recognizing or learning that it had been, I want to say, man, numbers again are tripping me up. I should have done my research. But I want to say it was about 54, 55 years since any new category had been added to the Federal Register.
Wow.
That was just kind of an eye-opening number and, further validation of all the work that we put in and what it took to get it done. It truly is something, if you look at it from a personal perspective and, your career in whiskey or your career in spirits, not many people get the opportunity to do something like that in their career. So a lot of us were really, appreciative of the fact that, we had that opportunity. But, compared to bourbon, I don't know. No, I guess would be the honest answer. It wasn't on our minds. It's certainly not something that we kind of nudged TTB on. It was really just about being in the moment and recognize that it was time for American Single Malt Whiskey to take that step. So it was less about any of the other categories than it was about the moment we were in and the recognition of the moment. So, I mean, but if you look at it, what you're saying is true. And I guess I haven't had a conversation like we're having right now, if that's the question. I mean, we're 250 years this weekend, right, as a country, and bourbon was a formal category.
By the time this drops.
Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry.
You and dates again.
Well, that one's not my fault. This should be so exciting to you guys that you want to release it tomorrow.
This is going out live right now. People are watching this around the world.
It's happening now. It's happening now.
July 4th weekend.
So if you look at it in that context, the country's been around for 250 years, and now you're really stretching my math, but let's round to 75, as bourbon's been around for 75 years. So I guess you can look at it 65. In those terms and be like, wow, it wasn't really that long ago. And maybe people have a misconception that it's been around longer. I think you got to remember that rye was really the first thing in this country, not bourbon.
This is very true.
So, you really want to delve into history, which I love to do. So, long answer to your question, no, it wasn't really on our minds very much.
But the reason I bring it up is I felt like around the time there were some people who were like, do we need this? Do we need to state a category for American single malt whiskey? And I think that to me was the part where, well, they had to do this for bourbon, right? And folk kind of go, what do you mean? And so that was kind of the impetus for me, was connecting that back to that this is necessary, and I think, as we talked about it along the way, the separation of American single malt whiskey from Scottish single malt whiskey, English single malt whiskey, the rest of the world single malt whiskey, like that to me was the importance of doing this. And so to be able to point to a recent example and say, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not even creating the wheel from scratch over here, right? We're doing something necessary. I also thought that was an important aspect of it. I was curious if it was in the room.
Yeah, no, it wasn't in the room in the context of bourbon. But if you again put it into context, if a definition for bourbon was necessary in the 1960s, whiskey is a much different landscape now than it was back then, with a lot of things on offer to consumers, a lot of information and nuances to parse by consumers. It's even more important now than it was way back then, to make sure that consumers are armed with the adequate amount of information to understand what they're shelling out real dollars for, to understand what's in the bottle, so that they can be confident that what they think they're buying, they're actually buying. So, yeah, even more important for it now. Along the way, over the last 10 years of trying to do this, along the way, we've been asked a lot of questions about other categories. And, our perspective has always been, the more clarification, the better. This is all at the end of the day to benefit consumers.
Yeah.
And it is a very, you guys know just as well, this is a really complicated industry. This is a very complicated, proposition for consumers. They walk into these stores, there's hundreds of bottles. They all have various nuances from a production standpoint. They all have different names. They have fanciful names. They've got data on them. Look at people like Single Cask Nation, throwing everything you can possibly want to know onto the bottle. And, there's a reason for that. There's a reason consumers want that, because they need it. They need to understand what they're buying. And it's a very complicated world of whiskey out there. So, our perspective is, the more information, the better. The more transparency, the better. The more formalization there can be, the better. And I know a lot of people are always saying, well, when is it too much? I'd rather have too much than too little. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, what you're saying here made me think of the hope I had back in 2022, 2023, when Jack Daniels and Jim Beam came out with their own single malt. And I think of these brands, and I think there was maybe one or two other large brands you would know better than me, but the idea of larger brands coming out with an American single malt with big dollars behind them that can have, end of aisle displays, or basically marketing dollars that can help retail spaces create a spot that would say American single malt, to help put other brands within American single malt. I think part of the problem from the consumer perspective, who really doesn't know, like you said, that most consumers don't even know that you can make bourbon outside of Kentucky, right? These are the people that we're dealing with, and it's no fault of their own. But the fact that you go into a retail shop and your American single malt is either going to be in the bourbon section or it's going to be in the Scotch whiskey section, like retailers don't know where to put it.
Yep.
And so I wonder, when those bigger brands came out with their own American single malts, was there any talk amongst the members within your commission of that hope? Like, was there this idea that could those dollars from those larger companies help pave the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those bigger companies entering, whether they're doing so with their named brands as line extensions, or whether they're doing so by investing in, acquiring, etc., existing American single malt whiskey distilleries, the influx of investment, that is absolutely something that we looked on with great excitement, because it can bring more exposure to the category. I think the number one thing probably that the commission can be doing now, and that we're working hard to do now that ratification is behind us and the regulatory effort is finished to some extent, is to really look at off-premise, in particular retail stores, organizing their shelves accordingly. It wasn't that long ago, and I'm sure I could go out to a store within a day here and have the same experience, where I would see American single malt whiskey bottlings spread throughout the store, and talk to the store owner and hear, oh, we don't have any of those, or we don't have enough of them, and I have to walk them around their own store and say, but you actually do. You just have one in other, and one in Scotch, and one in bourbon, and one in craft. And, if you just pull all these together and put them under a sign that said American single malt whiskey, you'll do a lot better with it. In fact, at the commission, we ran a study where we did an A/B testing, basically, of how a store would do with a named shelf versus an unnamed shelf, or spread out across the store. And their sales, not only of American single malt whiskey, but of whiskey in general, went up. So we're constantly trying to encourage retailers to do that. Now, that's a long game, right?
Sure.
These are stores that have a specific set square footage, and moving things around is a lot to ask. But I'll tell you what, 20 years ago, there wasn't a retailer in this country that wouldn't blow up their whole back room to accommodate Japanese single malts that they were being offered. Right. So, I think that, now's the time, hopefully, that those retailers are recognizing that there's a similar opportunity here for them in American single malt. So
on one hand, we're talking about the retailers going forward. Well, what about members going forward? Are there experiments afoot? Are there hard and fast lines of discovery for producers? Like, what does the next few years look like for single malt whiskey producers that are members of your commission?
Well, if I knew that, I'd be a rich man, Jason. If I could see the future,
I
the honest truth
by
is,
the friends he keeps, Steve. You're already wealthy.
The honest truth is, a lot of people are just trying to get by right now, man. I mean, I think we were lucky as a category to have hit a certain point in its kind of life stage, in the maturity of the category before this downturn in the industry, to where a lot of things were dialed in nicely. 15 years ago, I would do tastings of, 10 American single malts, and quite frankly, 2 would be excellent, 4 would be pretty good. Here we go with math again. 3 would be okay, and 1 would be pretty terrible, right? I hope that adds up to 10.
We're going to have to run the tape back on that one.
But, 5 years ago or so, all 10 were hitting, so the quality level was there. And I think what you're seeing right now in an effort to kind of get through some tough times, people are just digging in and doing what they know they do well. And, in some cases, pulling back on some of the limited editions or single casks or experimental stuff to just focus in and really try and do what they've proven that they're good at. So I think there's a lot of that and a little less appetite right now for the what ifs. Certainly you're seeing since ratification, you're seeing some distilleries that had been putting down, malts starting to release it for the first time. You're seeing distilleries that were kind of waiting to see if they wanted to get into that game. They wanted to from a kind of artistic standpoint, but from a business standpoint, they were like, we just need to keep making our vodkas and our gins and whatnot and see if we can get by. And now they're starting to say, all right, time's ready for me to get into this if we can afford it. American Single Malt is not a cheap thing to make. It is the most expensive thing to make as a distillery in this country. So, I don't think you're seeing a lot of, experimentation, if that's your question, going on right now. I think it's a buckle down type of environment that we're in right now. That's just the reality of it.
Wow. How is that story told to the consumer? American Single Malt is the most expensive thing to be made right now. Please buy my product.
Well, again, Joshua, this comes back to something you were saying before. Most people out there, I would argue, don't know that bourbon's made from corn or predominantly corn, right? They just don't even know that. I was playing tennis the other day, talking to someone who knew I was in the whiskey business and said, oh, I tried a bourbon, but you sell whiskey, not bourbon. Right. And it's like, do I even have this conversation with this guy, or do I just say, you're right? So I just said, you're right. I didn't want to make him feel bad because he didn't know that bourbon was whiskey. Right. So so getting into the idea of, all right, well, why is single malt more expensive to make? Well, first of all, it starts with the grain. The grain is 4 to 5 times more expensive than commodity corn. So you're already starting with, a heavy task here, let alone some of the other nuances of different types of equipment that are required and yada, yada, yada. It's just, cask quality, can you use kilns dried, wood for single malt, and then you just go down this huge rabbit hole. It's like, I don't think that's the lead message, I guess, is my answer to your question. It's not about trying to justify the price point because it's expensive to make. Consumers probably don't want to hear that. They want to hear why they should drink it, and that's about flavors, and that's about, all of those things. So
Fair. So you're leading with flavor. So I asked Alistair this question, and it was very specific to Boulder. And now I'm going to ask this question that is more broad to American Single Malt, and it is: who is coming to American Single Malt, and who does American
Eddie
Single
Murphy.
Malt?
Sorry.
Right? Who's coming to drink American Single Malt, and who do most producers want to sell to?
I get this question all the time, and people don't love my answer, but it's everyone, right? I think that look, the question really is: are you trying to attract Scotch drinkers, or are you trying to attract bourbon drinkers?
Right.
That's kind of the question. And the answer is both, because, but for different reasons. Scotch drinkers are Scotch drinkers because they like the range of flavors that can be had across distilleries, across bottlings, right? So, they're in it for the exploration, right? So trying to appeal to them and say, well, try this, it's going to be different, and here are the reasons why it's different, is a compelling argument. And that's what you want to do, is try and convince people to, give American Single Malt a chance because it can surprise you or live up to expectations. And we now have those expectations where, again, 10 years ago, they didn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I don't want to say it was a stigma, but it was, well, it's not Scotch. Now it is very much, I'm intrigued to see what this is all about, because
Yeah, nice.
I'm predisposed to do that. I'm a malt drinker.
Yeah, I like that.
The story to bourbon drinkers is different. Bourbon drinkers do tend to be much more kind of brand loyal, and this is the whiskey that I drink type of approach. However, the journey that whiskey drinkers in this country in particular have been on in the last 20 years has been quite a wild ride, and they are absolutely at a stage right now where they're looking to explore. Now, they were exploring within bourbon for a long time, and becoming less and less brand loyal. But now they kind of got a taste for variety, right? They, and that's also true with the food they drink and wine and all, beer and all those kinds of things that have kind of, the American palate, I would argue, has become a lot more sophisticated over the last 20, 30 years because of the access to all these new ideas and new flavors and new things. So single malt really fits nicely into that when you're talking to a bourbon drinker. And if you really want to press the subject, you can say to them, you're trying a lot of different bourbons, and if you're tasting some variety and flavors in bourbons, oh my God, wait until you get into malt whiskey, right? I know you guys are good friends with Murphy at Cedar Ridge, who makes both single malt and bourbon. In fact, you guys released a cask from Cedar Ridge not too long ago.
Thank you.
But Murphy's great to talk to about this, because not only because he does both, because he's got a really great way of describing it. And for those of you watching the episode, he uses his hands. But he'll say, look, when I'm making bourbon, I'm trying to do as many different things as I can, but my kind of area of play is a lot narrower than it is when I'm working with malt, which is, a much wider, range of flavors that I can, pull and poke on and tease out of these casks. So, that's kind of the sell to bourbon drinkers, which is, expand your horizons a little bit. And it can be challenging. Both Scotch drinkers who are entrenched in, like, I drink Scotch and I'm a Scotch gal.
Yep.
That's hard to overcome. But again, once they taste it, their senses perk up and they're like, oh, this is actually interesting. And more often than not now, they're tasting a good American single malt instead of something that disappoints them. And then same thing on the bourbon front. It's like bourbon drinkers, they like that, heavy oak, corn agnostic flavor, right? And that's kind of what is it sweet and caramelly, and that's what I'm after. Once they get a taste, that's the big hurdle. Get a taste, give it a try. The quality is there. Are you interested in going beyond the vanilla, caramel, sweet oak flavor profile and experiencing different things? And if you are, again, the quality lives up to it, and they start down that journey. So it's just that initial hurdle on both fronts that's hard to get over. But absolutely, both of them are audiences we want to convert, as it were.
Listen, this is a masterclass sitting here with you and learning from you. This is a real treat. Thank you so much for your time. I want to get you out of here on this, since it's an extra episode and it's a Type 35.
Type 35.
What's the final word on American Single Malt Whisky for this moment?
We're just getting started.
That's goddamn professional. Look at that, man.
If I didn't do one word, I did several words. But it's the truth. I mean, look, we covered some ground on bourbon, formalizing in the 1960s. We formalized 18 months ago. I mean,
Sure
Scotch
enough.
has been made for 500 years, if you want to count for all the stuff, pre-legal and
Originalities.
whatnot. I mean, look, I mean, it really is just getting started. I mean, I don't think anybody out there would argue that Steve McCarthy wasn't the first to make it. That was in the 1980s, 90s.
80s?
Like it's
80s?
really a new
Yeah.
thing. And all that's happened in the time between Steve first making that single malt here in America and where we are today is just setting the stage for kind of liftoff, really, if you ask me. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell your producers that are trying to run businesses and they want this to be a mature category, and it's getting there. But the truth is, we are still just getting started. So lots of exciting things to come.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
President. We will return you to the green room. Please do not leave us.
I'm gonna fade right back into my in-floor.
Let's agree to meet back here in another 18 months.
Yeah, there we go.
See what it looks like at that point.
All right, deal.
I like that. All right. Now we're officially dropping it down.
Awesome.
I'll be here.
Cheers. There you go, Joshua. Top-notch stuff. I absolutely love it. Such a thorough conversation of a category. Really, really well worth our time. Before we get out of here, again, respecting the clock on the wall, keep your eyes open. Whiskey Jubilee. We keep mentioning October 15. Really excited to get together. Celebrate 15 years of Single Cask Nation. Also, as we've been focusing on across these batch of episodes, we have the American whiskies coming in July. By the time this episode drops, we'll be very close to launch. So, keeping our doors open there. And then, as Joshua forever begs us to do, be sure if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. Click the little bell, flick the little bell, ring the little bell, tickle the little bell. Just give that bell the attention it needs. We'd love to have you following along on the YouTubes. And as always, if you're listening, we greatly, greatly appreciate you too. Any last words for you, Joshua?
Oh, last words. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think Steve Hawley is just a wonderful spokesperson for American Single Malt. I think he's the right person to lead that commission. I know you kept calling him the commissioner of the commission. I think he should 100%. Change his title to the commissioner
100%.
of the commission.
100%.
While he's commissioning the commissions.
Commissioner Hawley is our version of Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it was great to see what was going on 18 months later, and I like what you said. Let's see what's going on in the next 18 months. It's amazing to believe we're only 18 months into this. So.
Time, how does it work? Here, let's leave it here. Let's meet up again in the next episode when we'll have another ongoing conversation about American whiskey. Till then, Joshua, cheers, mate.
Cheers.